Okay, hey guys. So I thought I would kind of go over our DIY dry cooler, and I've had a couple of questions on like how'd we do it and what we do, all that kind of stuff. So this is just a 36-inch exhaust fan that instead of putting, vertical on, a wall, we have just mounted it to a square beam and mounted some radiators inside of it at a little bit of an angle, and so that we can get the idea was I wanted to get both radiators in about the size of the fan itself. So and it worked out pretty good. This one's not bad at all. It seems to work pretty good. You can see down here that one without a 90 is the input. So you got your input here. It goes up the radiator, crosses. So it goes in here. You're right. It goes in there. Comes out, goes into the bottom of that radiator, and then comes back out into the tank. And you can see the radiators down here. Kind of see that set up there. And that's it. I mean, it's super simple build. It was a little complicated to figure out how to get those angles just right. We had to put a little padding in. I wasn't too sure about what kind of vibrations we'd have on it. But everything here should be weatherproofed enough. Emphasis on enough. And we have it inside our second unit right now, and just so that we can test it and all that kind of stuff here, and then it'll be going outside once we get a cover on it, of course. You don't want anybody sticking their little fingers in there, because that fan's no joke. It will take it right off. It looks pretty cool in the 60 FPS video, but in real life, I don't know if I can really show this, but you don't really see the fan much. You just kind of see a silver. Can't really get that in video. It's kind of weird how that works, but as you can see, it's just two radiators sitting in there. Super simple. Right now we're running them in series. One radiator is kind of the hot one, and the other radiator is trying to just take off whatever it can. But we're setting up the second tank, and I think what we're going to end up doing is just using one radiator for one tank, the other for another tank. And we'll see if that works out, or if I just got to build another one of these. We'll see. So the cost on this is, like a tenth of the price of a dry cooler. A good dry cooler being 10 grand, I can build this for 600 bucks or less. It just works out. DIY just is kind of fun to do. So if we do the second tank, which we're setting up right now, let me cut to that. So this is our second tank setup, and it's just a 70-gallon tempo tank. There you go. And this is a Dun loader. Aluminum. It's for restaurants, and these are proof of concept tanks. These are not going to be our full-time tanks. These are just proof of concept, proving that immersion is the way to go on our GPUs. And so far with our first tank, it's looking awesome. So we're just going to do different types of GPUs and do some 3080s. Some 3070s. We already have a tank full of A4000s, and I'm playing around also with the setup on this. I'm probably gonna, on the other tank about here, I have the inlet, so I might play around with where I put the inlet on this one. I'm not too worried about it. Like I said, these are just proof of concepts. We're building custom tanks that are more for what we're going to do, and we're going to manufacture these tanks. And let me cut to that and show you about that tank. So just a quick overview on what our new tanks are going to look like. There's a couple. This is like an early render of the tank, so there's a lot of differences. I'll just quickly point them out. This angle iron here is not going to be up top. It's going to be more around the middle. And these angle irons are going to run all the way around the tank. They will wrap all the way around the tank. The only other real design change is there's not going to be 3 feet on each one. They're going to be 2, and they're going to be inset just a little bit. So that's some of the changes that it will be in the finalized version. But you can just kind of see how this is going to be. The center channel is going to be our overflow here, and then these will be the input. And so the idea is that the fluid comes in. Let me cut to, there we go. So the idea is that the fluid comes into the input channels here and flows up, cooling whatever is in here, either an ASIC miner or a GPU node, and then spills over into the overflow here, and then comes back out to the pump. These angle iron here will be on this side of the channel, and yeah, that's the last part that needed to be changed. These will be on the inside. So what we'll be able to do here is, if we need to change the depth of this channel, we can have a piece of metal in here with some like long slide bolts, and then you can move that up or down and change the depth of this tank individually of each other. So that's kind of a neat feature that we've built into it. Down here, we're not really sure about how, we're going to fill this void either with pipe, capped pipe, something like that, just to fill in as much of this space as possible. We could easily run like 2 pipe, one on each side, to fill that in. And then this flow plate is removable, and we'll see how that goes. It'll just all be built out of mild steel for now. We might do some aluminum pieces, or aluminum tanks. I'm not real for sure about that. Kind of depends on the price of metal. That's going to be a big factor. But these are 10 feet long, and you should be able to get about 30 ASIC miners in this. Of course, that depends on which one it is, but based on like S19 Pros, 110 theta hash, should be able to get about 30 in there. And if we don't get exactly 30 and it's 28, no big deal. But that is the plan. And of course, also we can always tap the other side of the tank if we want to bring flow in from 2 different, both sides. In GPUs though, the flow would probably be too quick for just one tank. So what we'd end up doing is probably tapping the 2 tanks together. So you'd have one tank, sitting there, and then you'd have one behind it, and they'd just flow into each other. It might not work exactly as we want it to. And it'll also mean that we'd have to run pipes on the inputs. It is what it is. We'll see if we have to do that or not. We could just run pipe down here and bring a T up into it, and then another T up into it. That might be the easier way of getting pressure to each tanks. I don't know. There's a lot of, when you're trying to figure all this stuff out, it's not like there's a manual on how to do it properly anywhere. But we're also not talking about rocket science. So it's get flow in, get flow out. Make sure you got enough flow out that your pump's not scavenging. And you're good. And you need to make sure you have enough flow for your tank, and you need to make sure that the flow is evenish. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it does need to be even. these plates are removable, and it'll be easy for us to try different flow plate designs, because I can just have these, you know, laser cut or water cut and turned around really quickly, and they can be fairly thin, so it's not a big deal to change out the plate to a different style, size holes or slots or whatever we want to put in there. Yeah, so that's where we're at on the tanks. Now, I thought I would go over back to okay, so I thought I'd go back into how we built the dry cooler, and so it was pretty simple. So this is a 36-inch exhaust fan, and I literally cut a board and went, okay, now I need another one, and then real easy. I was like, let's try to do this as simple as possible, and not worry too much about cosmetic, because this thing has one job to do: remove heat. And if it does that well, I do not really care what it looks like. So long as it's functional, that's all I really care about. And that it's fairly safe to be around. Right now it is not, but it will be. I will figure a way to put something over the top of. We had to notch this little piece of wood here for the motor, and that just gave us a little extra clearance to move this further in, so that it sat out of this hole just a little bit, which it gives us a little bit more clearance on the radiators to bring them up a little higher, and that's that part that I was talking about, is bringing them up. So this is where we put legs on it, and then further mounting the fan. Here you can see it's mocking up the radiator, getting kind of an idea of where it's going to sit. And let's see here. Here's, I'm getting kind of an idea. Okay, I need them to be about here. And then I just had the idea to run some stringers across the sides. And then here's with the just some runners going across and checking clearance. And once we saw that clearance was all good, you can see here, like, when we were stacking it and I was making measurements to get the width that we needed, I just put in another 2x4. Like, did not care if this thing looks symmetrical or not. OCD might go off, and it kind of did. But like I said, it's function over form on this, and that's it was all about just getting this thing built so that it can function. And it took us about 2 days to build it, which that's not bad. Build a DIY drag. I could build one of these in a day now, probably, if I started early enough. But you can see, like, we wanted to have this wood on the side, the plywood on the side, and which left us some big gaps. And when we were putting those together, I didn't really get a picture of it, but I just put wood in there just to kind of fill the gaps. And that's with the last side on. And we ran into a kind of a funny situation. Like, we're like, okay, so we get the thing built. How do we get this last side on? And that was a little bit of a challenge. How do you mark the holes for where the holes in the radiator are to this final piece that you're putting on? I thought about everything from hinging this thing and making it till the door swings open, but the hoses go through it. It was quite a challenge to figure out, how to make that happen. And I don't, it ended up being kind of simple, but you overthink things, and here we are after we painted everything. We debated on if we should paint before we put it together. I was like, you know what, just needs to be painted. I did not really care. Cosmetic was second form, and function was first priority. So it got be lucky it got painted. So we did that. Here we are, final testing up the the radiators, and as I said before, it comes into the bottom of this radiator. These radiators are dual pass. They work exactly like PC water cooling radiators do, where it has a channel over here, so half the radiator, like this whole side flows across, comes up this channel, and then flows across here. So the hot comes in here, comes up, goes over here, gets passed to this side, comes up, and comes out. So this is your cold, this is your hot, and that's running them in series. But we're probably going to try running a tank on each one, which was kind of the plan from the beginning. We just wanted to run them in series and see what kind of temps we get before we ran 2 tanks on them. So here's kind of another shot. I wish I'd have got a little better shot of the electrical. I don't think I have a very good picture of the electrical. The electrical is just an extension cord running to the pump and tied in there. And later on, I'll tie it into a switch, and a breakout. Not a breakout, a disconnect. So eventually, this thing will have its own disconnect and then be tied into its own breaker. Yep. So it's an easy build. There's kind of the bottom view. And obviously these gaps are filled with expanding foam, and so you get a lot of air through the fan, through the radiator, and this particular fan, I believe it's about a 10,000 CFM fan. It's very quiet, surprisingly quiet, and it moves a lot of air. I have no idea of exactly what CFM it is, but I was told that you can change out this motor if you want different speeds out of the fan. You can change the pulley, or you can change the motor, put a more horsepower motor on it. But as it is right now, it moves quite a bit of air, and I've heard AC units that make more noise. I couldn't believe how quiet this fan was. Not that we needed to be quiet, but it was just a byproduct, I guess. I don't know. I was just really surprised that an exhaust fan would be that quiet. Exhaust fans that I've seen in the past, they're noisy. They make a lot of wind noise and whatnot, and there is some wind noise, but you can easily have a normal conversation standing right next to this thing. It's pretty cool. So at least it's not loud, right? So that's it. That is the DIY dry cooler setup. There's a lot of different ways you could do this. You could lay your radiators flat and just make the thing a little more rectangle. I've thought if I made a bigger one, like a 4 radiator setup, and then have everything just pass in, a hot and a cold. There's all kind of. I could even probably go get a custom radiator made. It's just really long. Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of options. There's a lot of ways you could do DIY dry coolers, and it's not as good as a bought dry cooler because they have a lot more tech going into them, and they have a lot better. They're rated for a certain load, and they have design fans, and that kind of thing. They're a lot better than DIY, but they cost a whole lot more. So hey, if you want to try to do something like this to make your own setup, this would easily, I believe, this setup, I believe, can cool at least 2 of our tanks, fairly easy. And if that's the case, then I don't see a reason why to buy larger dry coolers. Plus, they're hard to kind of get. Like it's my experience so far in even trying to source one is kind of a pain. Either there's a long wait time for it, in terms of weeks, or you try to work with some of the companies that sell them, and it's kind of hit or miss if you get any kind of customer service. Even if you're telling them, hey, I'd like to buy a dry cooler, I found it to be kind of a pain. It's easier to it was easier to find GPUs. Let me put it that way. than to source out a small dry cooler. And I think that's because a lot of these companies, they're selling like bigger, setups and whatnot, and small dry coolers probably just aren't any money for them, and I can't blame them. Um, but I found it to be kind of hard to find, a 200 kilowatt dry cooler or something that that was like less than 10 grand. So I think until we need something bigger, like with our large tanks that we're gonna do, at that time I probably will get a industrial dry cooler, and then we probably will mess with the evaporative chilling towers, and to boost that efficiency up. So there's a lot of things we want to do. It's just a matter of getting there, and I just thought I would show how we did our dry cooler, and I hope that helps you. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. These radiators are I'll put a link in them. These are just kind of a racing style radiator, and what I really liked about them is that it's not built like regular radiators. This is a 3-force fitting, and there's no other fitting on it. You have your in and out, and that's it. There's no drain, there's no anything else on them. And I really liked the fact that they were very much like large PC water cooling radiators. They're only a couple $100, and I think they're about $200, something like that. And they're supposedly made to hold 1,500 horsepower, to cool 1,500 horsepower, which is a lot of horsepower. And if these things can, and they're very thick, these are quite thick radiators. I also have some copper coils. Maybe I'll show those in another video. They're about the same size, but they're copper, like HVAC style heat exchangers. And, and I was thinking about putting those in there as well, but I figured I'd give these aluminum radiators a try. I mean, if it works, it works. It's a simple setup. There's no, you just clamp your hose on. There's no soldering or anything. And thus far, they've done a great job. So we'll just have to see what happens. I wouldn't be against building one of these and just linking them all together, and then have multiple fans at top. A big rectangular setup. I wouldn't be against building something like that for even a larger setup. Yeah, so hope this helped you. Hope it gives you ideas. Hope you're inspired by it. Literally took about 2 days to set this up, build it and set it up, in a very how you doing kind of way. Ended up looking okay, from 20 feet, it looks pretty good. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed, hit the bell, like the video. If not, just, thumbs down, whatever you need to do, bud. But have a good day.